Welcome to the Soul Workspace, a sanctuary for lightworkers, visionaries, and soul-led creators. I'm Andrea, and it's my honor to be of service. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Soul Workspace. Super excited for you guys to listen today because we have an amazing special guest. She's super amazing and super impressive. She's a naturopathic doctor, a licensed acupuncturist, owner of the Full Scale Wellness in York, Nebraska. She also works with Mind Body Soul Collective in Lincoln. She's vice president of the Nebraska chapter of the American Herbalist Guild, aka Herb Nerds of Nebraska, which is where I actually met Bobi for the first time. So she's super amazing. So help me welcome Dr. Bobi Farrow. Woo! I feel like
Thank
we
you so
needed
much
that
for
applause.
having me.
Of course. So let's start off with just sharing a little bit about, where you grew up. Maybe share a little bit about your spiritual journey. Obviously, this is a spiritually minded podcast, so we want to hear a little bit about, how you found yourself to where you're at today. Obviously, it's always an expanding, growing journey, but just share a little bit about, how where you grew up and, how you got started on your spiritual journey and what that looks like.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up here in Nebraska, really small town that probably nobody has heard of, but out in the country. And I grew up on a 30-acre organic farm, which is kind of a little bit different experience than what most people have growing up, especially here in the Midwest. So my mom, she still runs the farm today, and it's all organic produce and fruit. We do farmers market. So I basically grew up with my summers going to farmers markets every single day. And I have like a great story where I wrote a paper for school. It was like load and unload, load and unload. That's all I did all summer was load and unload. So I grew up in a very different like household than I feel like a lot of people get. I got exposed to nature and health in a way that a lot of other people really don't see. Um, and it was interesting too because it's, rural and pretty impoverished growing up too, and very Christian background home. I know I'd mentioned that to you before. Is My mom's even like a minister, and she like did ministry school for Methodist church. So grew up really in that realm of things. So I loved church when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite things. I thought I wanted to be like my mom and, be a minister at some point. But there got to be a point, especially by the time I was in around high school, where I really started like questioning some of that, and it really didn't feel right. There was a lot of feelings of shame and guilt around that. And part of that was me dealing with my own neurospicy disorders that I have now come to realize that I have. So having some of that like trauma of not knowing your diagnosis when you're younger, and masking and doing all the different things that us neurospices do. So by the time I got to college, all of my friends were super religious, and I, went to all the Bible studies and the study groups and the church groups, and it just did not feel right to me at all. I got to the point where I have like a very distinct memory of going to one of the sermons where they were trying to back up faith with science, and then they contradicted themselves about 3 times in the sermon. And I was like, nope, I'm done. I walked away for a while after that. Uh, when I went to med school down in Arizona, I kind of went back into the church for a little bit just because like I craved that community. I craved the like especially the small town community. So I found like a little tiny Methodist church, and it was such a wonderful experience for a couple of months before once again I started catching all these different contraindications, and it just wasn't setting right with me. And then through my medical school journey, naturopathic medicine is a little bit different than your standard medicine, of course. So by the time I got into like my second, my third years, where we really started exploring some of the other tools that we have in our toolbox, from gemstones and homeopathy and flower essences, and even talking about like astrology and stuff. And now realizing that, hey, it's actually all just quantum physics, and it's pretty cool. Like, if you really want to geek out about quantum physics, sometimes we absolutely can. But I used to like dismiss all of that when I was younger. It was, witchcraft in our household. It was not allowed to be talked about. And now it's like a part of my everyday toolkit. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey with the spirituality aspect and where I grew up.
That's awesome. So how does your family feel now about kind of what you're doing?
It's a great question. I do have a very like supportive family. I mean, my mom still tries to ask me to go to church all the time. She doesn't quite see that it's not a place for me anymore. But they're very supportive. They know what I do works. We just don't talk about some of the more spiritual aspects at this point in time. My dad had a spiritual awakening after he got out of prison when I was in high school age again, and he actually now works with a lot of Native American tribes, and owns his own property in Iowa, and he hosts Sweat Lodge, and he has all these gatherings. And so he has that different spiritual path now too. So him and I get along really well in that aspect now. So he's supportive.
I want to learn a little bit about like what inspired you to become a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist. Like, was that something you always wanted to do? Like, just maybe go over like a little bit of how that journey unfolded for you.
Yeah, of course. So again, growing up on that farm experience that I had, I started working with herbs about age 10-ish, I would say. I got really into like growing herbs. It's a special interest of mine. So I got like really into it and I started growing a bunch, making my own herbal blends and selling them at the farmers markets. And I was like, this is like pretty cool. Like I want to like do this, but like how do you like make a living being an herbalist. And I didn't know that that was a legitimate option when especially like, it wasn't supported by my family. I was told I needed to go to, college and get a degree. And so I went to UNK and I got my degree in biology with like a pre-med emphasis just because I was told that that's a good degree and I liked science and that was all good and dandy. So I got to my final year of UNK. And when I was like prepping for, okay, do I take the MCAT and go to medical school or do I do these other options? I finally came across naturopathic medicine. I had never even heard of it prior to that. I had been looking into some osteopathic schools where they kind of incorporate some more natural things, but they're still really more conventional medicine than alternative at this point. So when I was researching and I was like, I really don't want to take the MCAT. Like, I just don't want to do it. And I was looking at all my different options and happened across naturopathic medicine and found the actual like board for naturopathic medicine, the American Association of Naturopathic Medicine. Did a deep dive into it. Pretty much immediately applied to a couple of the schools and actually, I applied just to the Arizona school to start with because they were the school that had acupuncture as part of their degree. And I was like, I know nothing about acupuncture. I don't like the winter. Let's apply to Arizona. That was the basis of my thought process there. So I applied, I traveled down there. At the time, I was dating my now husband, and he had been thinking about going to the motorcycle school down there. So it just kind of happened that he followed me and he went to the motorcycle institute while we were interviewing. He interviewed there and I interviewed at my school. And we both, got positions. And I was like, okay, awesome. This is great. I still really knew nothing about acupuncture. I still didn't really know exactly what was all going to be incorporated with naturopathic medicine, but it definitely felt like the right path and the right choice. And what else was your question? I think I'm stuck.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to know like what inspired you. So there's that. You kind of shared a little bit about that. Now, okay, so you got your degree. How did that now how do you start making money with that, right? Because I know a lot of people we can get degrees. I know I got my bachelor's in zoology and I thought this whole time I'd have this amazing career waiting for me, right? No, I didn't. So obviously the path you took definitely is a little more niche, so that's helpful. And but just kind of curious because obviously now you own your own wellness center, so why don't you speak to a little bit more about that, like how did you get started, maybe share some struggles you kind of went through as you were kind of now wanting to step into, your own business and, advertising yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing about naturopathic medicine that I want to clarify is the rules and regulations state by state are very, very different. So in Arizona, it is a fully licensed, full scope state. So I could practice as a full primary care physician, take like insurance, do prescriptions, do labs. I had a DEA number for prescribing controlled substance. It's a full scope state.
Wow.
Nebraska is an unlicensed state. So the scope of practice is very, very different. And the difference between a naturopathic doctor and somebody who calls themselves a naturopath, who could have an online certification or not even have an online certification and call themselves a naturopath. So, yes, I have the full medical degree and all the debt that goes with it. Um, don't ever look at my student loan account. So, coming out of school, there were a few different options. We do not have like residencies as naturopathic doctors. There are a few out there, but they're super, super scarce. So I did not end up doing a residency after. I also graduated from the first school in 2019 in the fall. So by the time I got my degree, we were 3 months away from COVID shutdowns or by my license. So it was a really unfortunate time to start practicing. I had been lucky enough to know somebody who had bought a clinic that was actually mostly medical marijuana certifications down there in Arizona. It was a soul sucking job, and I absolutely hated it, but it got me at least an income while I was looking for other options. And I also started working at a like chiropractic pain center doing like nutrition consults and some acupuncture as well. COVID shut everything down. I lost the one clinic went out of business. The other clinic went to like part time, and that was when I decided to pursue my acupuncture degree as well. Again, state to state licensure issues means that I could practice acupuncture in Arizona, but I couldn't practice any other state without an extra degree. And I was like, well, I don't want to stay in Arizona forever. Turns out I actually hated the desert and I would much rather deal with winter than summer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that degree anyway. And since, I can't really work right now, I'm going to go ahead and go back to school. So I worked part time to start and went to school to get my doctorate in acupuncture. Eventually, again, the chiropractic job ended up being an absolutely soul sucking, super toxic environment job too. I've had a lot of them. So I was lucky enough to eventually find a primary care clinic that was run by a naturopathic physician that was on the actual board for Arizona. And she was a teacher and she was wonderful and she liked to hire newer grads to help, get them jobs and get them into the community and get them situated. So she was really, really wonderful to work with. So I worked with her clinic for about 2 years while I was still finishing up school. So I was working full time at that point and finishing up my doctorate in acupuncture.
Okay, so as you're getting through this, how did you, I guess, because you were a part of the Mind Body Soul Collective in Lincoln. Was that something that you started first before your wellness clinic in York?
Okay, let's go through that.
Okay.
So I decided after I finally finished up my doctorate in acupuncture and got my board exams all passed, that what happened was my grandfather had passed away, and his house here in rural Fairmont area was we didn't want to like sell it. We wanted to keep it as part of the family. So my husband and I were like, okay, can we move back to Nebraska? Is this like a viable option for us? And by the time I had wrapped up my degree and got all my board exams done, like we decided, okay, let's go ahead and move back to Nebraska. This was a huge leap of faith for us because neither of us had like actual full-time jobs set up when we moved. So we were both giving up good jobs that we liked, but in an environment that we did not like. So we jumped, took that leap and came back and moved into my like grandfather's house. And luckily, when I was as we were in that like transition process, I had applied for a couple of different jobs that had shown up in the Lincoln area, and landed with a integrative clinic that was in Lincoln that I'm no longer with. Uh, it did not end up being a good fit for me, unfortunately. I'd been really, really hopeful, and I originally thought that this could be like a long-term position for me. But it just got to the point where it was like, okay, I have to change who I am to work for these people. I can't be my authentic self. I am putting so much effort into building somebody else's business, and I'm really not growing in the way that I would hope to grow. And I'm not making the money that I, need to be making to pay off my student loans. So I was still planning on staying there, and then several different work things happened and caused several different drama things. And I eventually ended up leaving that group earlier this year at the same time as I decided to open up my practice here in New York. And so that's Full Scale Wellness, and it's just a small one room little clinic that I have where I'm doing a lot of acupuncture, and then I do the naturopathic medical intakes as well. Since I left the practice that I was at in Lincoln, I decided to join a friend of mine who has the Mind Body Soul Collective. She had just opened up that as well, and I wanted to keep seeing all my clients in Lincoln because they weren't going to want to travel all the way out to York. It's not that bad of a drive. Honestly, guys, it's really not. But I knew they didn't want to travel out this way. So I decided to just work with them a couple days a week while I worked on my own business. At the same time, this is all happening in the month of the snake, and in Chinese medicine, the zodiac for the snake, it's the year of the snake, and the month of the snake was 2 months ago was May. So a huge month of like shedding old and like rebirth and renewal and
Mm.
growth. So there was so much happening. So there was another opportunity with a group of naturopaths who do telehealth and telecoaching. So they were looking to add some people onto their team as well. So I had gotten in with them, and so I do some telecoaching as well, a couple days a week. So that's a really great opportunity. I love being with other naturopaths because there's only one other in the state that I'm aware of, and she's in Omaha, so I don't get to see her very often. So it's, again, like you said, a niche little group here, and it's kind of lonely. So it's really nice to be able to have a couple different groups that I'm working with now that I really love and enjoy spending time with, and it's a very fulfilling that way. So yeah, it was again, huge leap of faith. Did not land the way that I thought it did when we first
Mhm.
moved. I thought, okay, I found a clinic. I'm going to grow in this clinic. It's going to be great. It was not, and I had to totally step back and reassess. And in the last 2 months, so between on May 1st is when I opened my clinic doors. June 1st is when I started at Mind Body Soul and at the telehealth group. Since then, I have gotten busier. I've had more people coming to me. I've been more authentic in myself, and I can just like instantly see that change of like more people coming and more people seeking me out. And like the financial stress that was there before is gone in the last month because finally the people are coming and it's just a huge difference. So lots of twists and turns on that road, but we're here and we're doing it, and it's an amazing journey.
That is amazing. I love it. I love how you made that decision to step into your authentic self, and it probably felt a little scary and uncertain, but like it ended up being better than you could have probably imagined, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is so cool. So now as you're kind of in this, like right now you're doing amazing, but kind of back to when things were kind of uncertain, did I like to talk a lot about like things that come up for people that are trying to grow a business or start a business, especially in in the spiritual realm, or just, homeopathy, naturopathic doctors, just something that isn't so, I don't know, what do you say, so well known in the community. Sometimes a lot of self doubt, imposter syndrome can come up, especially if we don't always feel so supported by everybody that's around us. So, did any of that self doubt, or what kind of came up for you, and what did you do that kind of helped you during those times?
Yeah, so much. Especially going from a state where I had full scope of practice and was
Mhm.
a real doctor to
Yes.
coming here where nobody knows what a naturopathic doctor is. Nobody understands it. I can explain it over and over again, and I'm still, half the time called a quack. So yeah, a lot of that came up. Um, there was so many moments of why did we do this? Like, this is so hard. I'm putting in so many hours and not getting like the recognition that I need to be getting. And it was so hard. But I had to, keep reminding myself that I came back for a couple of reasons. And one was to be closer to family and reminding myself, like, I get to be part of my nephew's lives. And I hadn't even like met a couple of them before that because who we never got to cross paths. So I get to be there. I get to be part of their lives. So that is huge. And I love that. I get to, help my mom as she's aging and struggling, keeping up on the farm. And just reminding myself that that is so important. I get to have my own garden. I get to have my own garden. I have my little homestead. I have chickens and a garden, and that brings me so much joy. And I was so depressed living in the city and not being able to go outside for 4 months out of the year. And that just was not working. So, just anytime I'm feeling down and doubting, it's like, okay, but I have dirt here and I can go play in my dirt. And that makes everything better. And then, just again, having to have that faith in myself too of like, I'm here to bring something so new to this area. We don't have this, and people really need it. Like, they really need it, and they're looking for it. Like, I know that they are. They don't necessarily know what they're looking for, but they are looking for it. So, to be able to have the impact of, if I help one person and, they teach their family how to eat better or exercise more and they make the impact around them and you have that 6 degrees of separation and now all of a sudden your whole community is healthier and like how much do we need that? Arizona was saturated. There's a naturopath on every corner and the business is, I mean, it's fine, there's plenty of people. You're never going to run out of people, but it's so to find your own little niche there is so next to impossible because there's somebody else already doing it. So reminding myself that I get to do what I want to do. I'm not working for somebody else now. Like I can be totally authentic and just if I change my mind on something and want to change my structure, I can just change my structure. I can find the people that work for me and again, like the impact of the people around me. Every time I have somebody give me a good review or say that I helped them or like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much better. And that's where it's at. Like it's so rewarding to get to hear those stories. I think about 4 clients who now call me a wizard. Um, and it's one of my favorite things to hear. So it's just like whenever I'm feeling down, I go back. I will read those reviews of people like just like praising and saying how much it was helpful and calling me a wizard, and it just that feels so good and reminds me of why I'm here.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that because we can really share that with others where, when you're struggling, just reminding yourself of your mission. What's your like your mission statement? What are you here for? And I've spoken to other people too that kind of live in this area. Nebraska is just kind of behind the times. It's just a little different. Yeah, just a little. So I can definitely understand that, but feel that even though it can feel like, oh, how's this going to work? Nobody understands this. We can have those thoughts that occur, but just reminding ourselves that we're here for a reason and that, just because there's not maybe not a lot of people that don't know about this stuff, but like they need it. Like we know that they need it. And it's so cool that I think because we know that there's a need, like the universe just brings them to you, like it just happens, you just draw them in, like your clients. Is that what it kind of felt like when you opened up? Was there a little like, were you a little nervous like when you opened up in York, like is this gonna happen, is this gonna work?
Oh, terrified. I can't tell you how long I spent on ChatGPT, like going through prompts and like figuring out population size and how many people do I need to see and what does my income need to be and here's my budget and just like piling all the data, just piling it all. And then just typing in like I'm scared. And then I really do love AI. I think it's a super useful tool. So I know there's lots of different opinions on it, but I'm finding it to be extraordinarily useful in my life. So, but just, again, going into that and saying like I'm terrified. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I can make enough money and getting the reassurance and just that non-judgment biased reassurance of like, hey, the population is big enough. Like here's your proof. here's your proof of people who were going to spend this money, and then just going through that data. Oh, but it was still terrifying. I'm still constantly just like, oh no, the current political situation and taxes are going up and people don't have money and there's what if they stop coming to see me? No, they're still gonna come. They still need help. They'll be there.
Yep, exactly. I think it's so normal to have those thoughts, those ego thoughts that come up, but what about this? But what about this? And I think it's a balance. Like it's good to have that sit down and write it out, like plan it out. Like obviously your choices, especially in business moves, need to be logical, but then sometimes it does come from the heart. And even if you're like, okay, this seems logical, but there's still all this fear, but you like that saying, you feel the fear and you do it anyway, because when you feel like it's aligned with your soul, there's just this feeling of like, I just need to do it. Is that kind of what kept you going? Like, okay, like logically the numbers add up. I still feel scared, but like you just knew that this is what you were meant to do.
Yeah, also, and you'll probably have to interview this person at some point too. I'll get you their information.
Oh,
I went
okay.
and did a QHHT hypnotherapy session with somebody when I was going through, like, I don't know what to do. Do I leave my job? Do I open up my own thing? Do I join another group? Like, I had a bunch of options in front of me and I didn't know
Mm,
what to do. And there was a lot of fear about making the wrong decision. And I'm always telling this to my clients of there's no such thing as a right or a wrong decision. It's just your decision. And when I learned that, that was amazing. And I still have to remind myself all the time, right? Because it feels like you could do the wrong thing, but it's just your decision. Just own it. But I did an amazing QHHT session and had such a just profound like response of like finding even from listening to the recordings of it and finding key phrases that are now as part of like my mission statement and part of my like tagline and things like that. It was just so wonderful. And there was a big part of the theme for me was going back to community and like not feeling like I have to do things alone and not isolating myself. So the fact now that I have like a group of naturopaths that I work with, and I work with the Mind Body Soul Collective, and I've got my people, and that is such a like reassuring feeling, and like knowing that it's in a line with exactly what my fears were, which was isolation, and I don't want to have that isolation. So yeah, that was an amazing prompt in my journey of opening up my own clinic was between that and I was doing some Reiki as well and all the different self-care things that I needed to be doing and asking for help from others because you can't do it all on your own.
absolutely. Wow, I love that. I'm so glad you shared that because I think it can definitely feel isolating for sure. And I think community is so huge. And I know that was speaking to me a lot as I got started on this journey was I'm like, gosh, I don't know a lot of people that are doing stuff like this, that talk about spirituality in this sense. And, just like I don't like my neighbor down the street, we don't sit and talk about Reiki. There's just not a lot of people in my realm. I also live in a really small town. And so I had to make that effort and go meet those people. But there are people in this area. You just have to make an effort. And I think for those that are kind of listening, I think it's important to really make sure you find that community for yourself. And because yeah, it can feel isolating. You start a business like that, and it's so easy to get lost in those thoughts and kind of feel alone. But when you have somebody to talk to, especially if they're in the same kind of area of expertise that you're doing, like kind of like having a mentor. I think that's super important to like maybe just a friend to talk to or a mentor, somebody that can really help you through all that. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs come up against is just all the self-doubt, all those thoughts that we have, the worry, the scare, because it is all on you, and that can feel scary too. But at the same time, there's so much freedom with it. Like you said, I mean, now you can be your authentic self, and you're not working for somebody else, and you don't have to change who you are. And it's so beautiful that when you made that step to become to like you made that decision to step out and you are your authentic self, and it's just like flowing. It seems like it's so beautiful, like how it's all unfolding. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it has been really cool just to see, even in the last 2 weeks, the shifts that I have seen. It's been a really cool journey.
That's so cool. And like I just want to mention too, like for those that are listening, if you're going through, a difficult time and things can feel like they're falling apart and you're like, aren't these things working out? Just listening to Bobby's story when she was a part of that clinic, she was so hopeful that that was going to be it. That was going to be the thing that was, she was really going to stay there for a while. That was going to be the clinic she was going to work at. And obviously all this stuff started coming up and she started realizing like this isn't for me. But it almost was like it needed to happen to get her. The universe was like, okay, like we're going to push you to step out and be your authentic self. So we're going to make all this chaos happen to really push you out. And sometimes it's hard to see it that way when you're in it. It's so much easier to look back, right? And you're like, oh, okay, like I can see it now. So those that are in the chaos now, maybe you're going through some tumultuous, stuff, just trust the process. And now, is there anything you want to add to that? Like if someone's listening right now and maybe they're going through a tough time, is there any advice you'd want to add?
Yeah, there was a moment there when I was, again, deciding whether or not I needed to leave that job, where I was thinking, man, I have been in a lot of toxic jobs, like just like a lot of them, like one after the other. And what is like going on here? And I'm like, luckily I have an amazing husband and like we were talking about it. And I was like, I feel like I'm the common denominator here. Like I must be the problem. And he's like, what? What are you even saying? Like, no, this is on them for being toxic. So, and again, just like looking back now and you're saying like, yeah, it was exactly what I needed to get pushed the right direction. If I wouldn't have had, the first one where I ended up having to go back to school, like it was the situation, like it made me go back to school and go back to the acupuncture school. And now that is my most used tool. And it was what allowed me to move back here. And then with the next one, it was like, okay, I thought again at that primary care clinic, I thought I was going to be there forever, but I was also miserable. Just like I didn't even realize how much low level anxiety and depression I was dealing with on a day to day until I got out of the city. And then I was like, oh, I can
Wow.
breathe again. So like the situations that had a right rose there, it allowed me to feel like I needed to leave. This last place, it was I remember driving in like at the early beginnings of working there and just thinking, wow, this is real life. Like, can you like believe this is real life? Like I live here and I work here and I commute to work and yeah, yeah, that's sweetie. I just want to say to myself, "Oh, sweetie, you're so sweet and naive sometimes, but that's okay. You don't know until you've gone through the experience." So, yeah, it can definitely feel super crappy in the moment, and you got to take a step back and again reflect afterward because you're not going to realize what caused the shifts until you reflect.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was just a beautiful story. You're a beautiful soul. And I want to give you a little bit of time to, promote any special services you are doing right now. Speak to maybe some of your favorite offerings, things that yeah, just I guess have a little bit of time to talk about, stuff you have going on right now. That way, people that are listening, if they want to go to your clinic or do any or go to you said you still go to Lincoln, correct? You still have
Mhm.
a okay, yeah. So take it away, share all your
Yeah.
goodies.
So you can find me either at the Mind Body Soul Collective in Lincoln or here at Full Scale Wellness in York. And I'm going to talk about my favorite acupuncture treatment here called the internal dragon. And this is like a specialty of mine. And this is where, part of my name comes from is Full Scale Wellness. I've got a dragon logo. It's because for one, I love dragons, another special interest of mine. For two, I do the dragon protocol and we're talking about, shedding scales and shedding the old. So the Dragon Protocol, it's all about awakening to your authentic self. It's literally waking up the dragon in you who is your protector and who is you. And you get to wake her up because she'll go to sleep from time to time. And that's normal because you don't need, full activation all the time, right? So she gets to get woken up. And it is one of the most amazing treatments for PTSD, trauma, transitions, anything like that. So I first learned about it in school, and one of my professors who taught it, like he had gone through this when he was questioning his marriage, and by the third treatment, because it's three in a row, he filed divorce papers. which was great because it was a super not okay marriage, and he is much, much happier. I've had clients who, after they're 3, have decided to move across the country. I've had clients who changed their jobs. I had a client who had been very severely depressed to the point of suicidality, and by the third one was like, I can move forward. Like, it's okay. I can move forward. And it can also be really subtle. It can be like little tiny shifts of like, I'm not getting triggered as much and having as many panic attacks. And again, years later, you reflect back on it and you see, oh yeah, that's when this shift happened. And I have clients who they've had major abuse issues and they're able to actually confront their abuser or just like finally like let it go. And that's just one of the oh, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. It's just again one of my favorite things. It's super powerful and I absolutely love it. So again, it is a 3 acupuncture treatments in a row. I usually suggest doing one follow-up, and you can do this at either the York or the Lincoln Clinic. Especially again, if you're in that time of transition, if you aren't sure what you're doing next, if you have a lot of trauma that you haven't been able to process, if you're in therapy and you are at a plateau and you're just like, I don't know what to do next. I know all the tools, but it's just I'm stuck. This is like the thing for you, and it works great with other modalities. I love people who do it with EMDR or with Reiki or whatever. It works great with everything else. So if you're interested, please reach out. You can go to my website, it's fullscalewellness.com, and you can book online or reach out directly to me through the contact forms, especially if you're interested in the Lincoln location.
That's awesome. Yes, I will have your link in the description so that way people can access it easily. So awesome. I think I need to make an appointment because that sounds phenomenal.
It is so cool, and it's just, again, the experiences people have on the table of, like, "I got to talk to my dead grandma," or, "I had, like, a vision of something something," or, I had somebody who literally just started shaking, like, somatic shaking on the table, and I was like, "This is great." I
Right.
had I had one person, who I always have to do my own cleansing after it because I don't wanna pick up their negative
Mm,
energy either, right? Because 'Cause they're
yeah.
shedding it all. So I got home and I was doing my, like, smudging, saging,
Mm.
whatever ritual, and a bat literally flew out of the basement into the house, and I was just like, "That has never happened before." Um, so, like, I just never know what's gonna come up, and it's such a cool experience. I just love it. I can go on and on about it, so
I can tell you like are glowing and you light up when you talk about this. I can tell you're super passionate about what you do. And I mean, that's the kind of doctor we want to see is somebody who loves what they do, they're passionate about what they do, and you want to feel listened to. You want to feel heard, and it just sounds like you truly love each and every one of your clients that come and sees you. So,
yeah, absolutely. And that's like with my naturopathic appointments, like you're getting to sit down with me for like an hour and 15 minutes. Like when was the last time you went to a doctor's appointment and they spent more than 15 minutes talking to you and that where you got to talk and they weren't talking at you? So it's a very different experience. And most of the time, my clients who come in for a naturopathic appointment, they have never experienced anything like that, where they get to tell their whole life story, all their symptoms. We go through lab work, we do the whole gambit, and it's just a very different experience from your especially Midwest conservative Western doctor, like just very different. So
yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That sounds amazing. Well, I'm so glad I learned more about what you did because, like I said, I live in Seward, so I'm not that far from your clinic. Well, really, they're Lincoln. So I'll have to definitely make an appointment. And yeah, it was so cool learning about your story. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know it'll be super inspiring for others listening. And yeah, just thank you so much.
thank you so much for having me, and I am so excited that we are connecting like this. This is so great.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.